Thank you for joining us all here. Thank you for, hey, let's give a round of applause for everyone involved in today's Manufacturing Nebraska's Future event before we get rolling. Excellent job from everyone all around. And we're going to try to end the day with some constructive yet, let's say, light conversation. Really, you can think of the premise of this podcast as how to have a conversation with someone over a drink about manufacturing in Nebraska. Scott, Mike, would you say that's fair?
That'll
Sounds
work.
great.
All right. Well, to introduce our guests, I know many of you here are familiar with them, but for those of you either listening to the podcast later, just getting to know us for the first time, I am joined by two champions of Nebraska manufacturing. Scott Volk, VP and COO at MetalQuest Unlimited, and COO and VP of Manufacturing for the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, Mike Johnson. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you for being here, Chris.
So the only way to, this is actually the most proper manufacturing happy hour we can have. So let's cheers it up as we get going. Cheers. Welcome. And, I gave you guys each a brief intro, but for those getting to know you, if there's anything you'd like to add, I'd like to open the floor to you as we get this event rolling. So, Scott, maybe we'll start with you.
All right. Well, I guess what do you want to know?
Well, anything else and anything else on your intro.
Tell them about what your business does.
Yeah. So MetalQuest Unlimited is a contract manufacturer. We've been in business for 26 years now. We're in a small rural town in Nebraska, and so trying to think outside the box, be creative to stay in business has been kind of at the forefront for us for a very long time. I've been with the business now is 20 years last week. So started in 2002, and it's hard to get people everywhere, and it's really hard to get people in rural Nebraska. So from the onset, we've been looking at what we can do different than other people to try to stay on the cutting edge. So we started doing systems integration and some light automation and data analytics as early as like 2003. Got into robots, I think around 2011, 2012, and it just kind of took off from there. Company, we have two locations. We have a location in Idaho and a location in Hebron, Nebraska. We have 75 total employees. We have 65 employees in Hebron, and in Hebron location we have 16 robots. So for a company our size, that's pretty unique to have that many robots spinning around doing things every day.
Yeah. No, appreciate the background. Mike, how about yourself?
Yeah, let's see, I've been working at the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce full-time since January 1st of this year, so relatively new. What am I, in my 5th month now? Something like that. And prior to this experience, I spent 16 years of my career with Anheuser-Busch. I was on their brewing team, multiple locations, part of leadership, part of technical support, and just started here at the Chamber full-time January 1st of this year.
Yeah, and I'm interested to ask about that. Maybe that'll be our first question as we get to know both of you. So, Mike, this first one's for you. What was it like making the switch from brewing to what you're doing now at the Chamber of Commerce?
Wow, that's a great question. It's very different and it's very similar, right? I could spend some amount of time longer than anyone's attention span talking about brewing beer, so I'm going to have to try to throttle myself a little bit. I had a dream job. I loved it. I was assistant brewmaster of the St. Louis Brewery in St. Louis. It was just it was an awesome gig, and met my wife, who also has a great career, and we had one of those difficult questions to solve when she was given a really great opportunity in Nebraska. So we ended up making a just totally crazy decision, and I left the brewing industry to support my wife's career. And ended up actually staying on working remotely for Anheuser-Busch from Nebraska. But we had a baby, just seemed like I should spend more of my time closer to home. And I got introduced to the Chamber of Commerce, and I like to surround myself with the things that's the same, is I'm going to surround myself with great people. And I had a chance to meet people like Scott, and others who are members of the Chamber organization that are just driven by this crazy passion for manufacturing in Nebraska And I bought in, and I thought, this sounds awesome. I want to be a part of this. There's nothing but upside to manufacturing in Nebraska, and I really felt like I could be part of something awesome. So it was, I'll talk about beer all day if you'll let me.
We'll save it for the end.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
give you
save
an
it for
opportunity
after
if you-
after you stop recording, I guess. But at the chamber, we support manufacturing. We support all of our members, but it really felt like the place that was going to pull all of the stakeholders together to really lead in making Nebraska the future of manufacturing. And so to me, it seemed like a unique opportunity to work with great people like Scott and others who are carrying this ball of manufacturing in our state. And it just seemed like a meaningful, purposeful mission. And that's what gets me all fired up. So I was all in.
Scott, similar question for you. You have a full-time day job, right? You're a leader at MetalQuest. So why did you get involved in the Chamber of Commerce?
That probably goes back actually to early in my career. I've always had a passion for education, passion for manufacturing, and I feel like in order to get things done, you need to lead by example. And so I've always just tried to interject myself into things and feel like I need to lead the charge in trying to get stuff done. If something's not getting done, no one else is going to do it. I'm going to step up and try to get it done. So I've just kind of slowly over my career, I've been doing this now for 26 years, have just started to work myself into different areas and asking the right questions to the right people on how I can get involved in different things. One of the things I was fortunate enough to do, Balin, which is here in Columbus, is led by T.R. Raimondo, and he has been known forever to be like one of the pinnacle people in manufacturing in the state. And he got to know me in the late 90s and kind of encouraged me to move on with what I'm doing. And so that got me really excited about getting more involved with manufacturing. So I've been an advisor for different school programs and different things at the state, and just trying to be a champion for manufacturing. And that led to about 3 years ago now, the chamber approached me. I was at a manufacturing day, and they said, we're trying to do stuff to try to pull some manufacturers together. And I've been in a lot of conversations I had been in saying the same thing, that we need to work together more. And it did seem like I was going to meeting after meeting after meeting, seeing the same faces. We were talking about the same things, but nothing was happening because we just were talking. And it was meeting Group A, Group B, Group C, but we're all talking about the same things. Like, this is ridiculous. We need to work together. Nebraska is known as an ag state, but manufacturing is the largest GDP driver in the state. And it's time for manufacturers to start acting like we are actually something special in the state. We don't have to be something unique and special and treated any different than anybody else, but we should at least be treated like we're one of the primary drivers in the state. And so that led the chamber to reaching out to me saying we're trying to form this manufacturing alliance with a few other groups. And so I started getting really involved in that, and through a series of conversations, that slowly evolved into what we have today, which is the Manufacturing Alliance, which is a combination of 5 different manufacturing groups in the state that are now fully aligned and working together to elevate manufacturing in the state of Nebraska.
So you might have answered a little bit of my next question a little bit, but we're having beers, and this is a very having beers with someone conversation. So, what happens when you're at a bar and someone says, yeah, but Nebraska's an agriculture state? How do you respond to that? Well, Scott, we'll start with you this time.
Okay, I get in trouble because I can't do the political answer because we are an ag state, yes. I have a family, I'm part of a family farm. The farm goes to me in a few years. But that doesn't mean that's all we are. We are a manufacturing state. We've been a manufacturing state for a very long time. But for whatever reason, that's not the political thing to say. And so it's frustrating that we have like our neighbors to the east in Iowa that are also very ag-based, but manufacturing is the largest driver there too, and they actually promote it. So why it's different here in Nebraska. So that's a little bit longer answer probably you're looking for, but I just say that, we are actually a manufacturing state, not an ag state, and I'm not quite sure why that focuses on that.
Yeah, Mike, what's your answer to that?
Can you repeat the thought that we have going on here?
Yeah. So it's when you're at a
I'm at a bar and someone says,
someone
"Why?"
says, "Hey, it's an
Thank you.
agriculture state." Yeah, no, that's good.
I had to place myself in that situation again. It's fun. I mean, we have a football team named after agriculture, right? And it is a key part of our economy. It is core. And the point, that Scott's making is not that agriculture is unimportant, but when we think about our future and we think about Nebraska getting, playing a larger role in the economic stage and recruiting more people to our state, what is it, right? What can it be? And manufacturing, meanwhile, in the background is just sort of sleepily growing year over year, even through the pandemic. We didn't see a decline in manufacturing output in Nebraska, right? It's still, even through the pandemic, a growing industry sector statewide. It's our growth engine. It's what's going to, everyone we've been talking to today is nodding their heads in agreement. Manufacturing brings great jobs. It improves the lives of people. And we all know this, but we're just sort of sleepily letting it happen on the sidelines. And, Scott's point about the formation of the alliance is really that, we're not taking on ag as a bragging rights competition, but the point is really, let's illuminate the strength and the benefits of this amazing economy and this amazing industry sector that we're just scratching the surface of. Nebraska's got a ton of assets. We have amazing people who work really hard. We participate in the labor pool. We're in the middle of the country. We have affordable land. We have affordable utilities and resources. It's just a powder keg waiting to explode. I think I remember saying that to you, Scott, on the phone months ago, and that's really just the thing when I say that this is such an exciting opportunity for Nebraska and for its businesses, is that this thing can really take off.
Right. Well, we're successful despite ourselves because we, like you're saying, we just kind of move along and we're still being successful. But if we could have the support that other industries have, not taking away that support to other industries like ag, but if we could get elevated to that level, think of the things we could do, because despite the lack of support, despite the lack of us trying to be more vocal and saying, here we are, we need people, we need resources, we're still being successful. So what can we do if we actually had those things available to us like other places in the country do?
Excellent answers. My next question is a little bit of what I would call like Chamber of Commerce 101, right?
Okay, sure.
I'm sure people here are pretty familiar with it. I imagine there are a lot of listeners, though, that are maybe trying to ask themselves, like, okay, what does a Chamber of Commerce do for manufacturing, right? So
yeah,
I'll direct this one at you, and then I'm interested to get your perspective, Scott, as someone that's running a business in the state and what Chamber of Commerce does for you. So, Mike, you can kick it off.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've listened to a number of your episodes, Chris, and it's all manufacturers, and now I'm kind of the guy who used to be a manufacturer and am now a Chamber of Commerce guy. What we are, the Chamber of Commerce, it's the coalition of business, and my role there and our role in the state is we are the place where businesses can go to know that we're going to carry their voice when it comes to legislative policymaking, when it comes to, lobbying for the sake of business and for the sake of economic prosperity and for competitive marketplaces to take place in Nebraska. So if you're a manufacturer, if you're a business listening to the podcast, and you're not participating in your state chamber or even your local chamber, my point would be get involved, even if it's at a small degree to start, to just get yourself more involved in promoting your local industry and promoting your state. So what do we do exactly? The chamber has a staff, and many chambers operate in different ways. The Nebraska State Chamber actually started over 100 years ago as the Nebraska Manufacturing Association. So even the Nebraska State Chamber's roots go all the way back, and I would hazard to guess that most, if not all, state chambers of commerce probably originated as state manufacturing associations and then grew organically over time to incorporate other business. So our roots are in manufacturing. We are the NAM liaison, so we serve still as a state association for manufacturing. we also facilitate events like we had earlier today, which is bringing manufacturers and manufacturing support organizations together, kind of in the pursuit of making our industry stronger in the state. I'm going to keep going for just a moment. This formation of the alliance, like Scott was saying, it's a coalition of groups who are trying to solve the same problem together. It made sense for that to live within the chamber, within the State Manufacturing Association. So we are calling that the Manufacturing Alliance now. And that alliance, it's made up of manufacturers, and we together, I poll the group and I say, group, what are the most important things to manufacturers right now? What are the things that we need to spend our next 12 months really focused on? Not focused on every little idea that comes up, but what are the things that we need to pour our resources and our attention into? So we do that. We prioritize those goals. We create actions. We get things done to completion, and we refresh again the next year. It starts to look a lot like a number of your listeners probably having one-year business plans.
Yeah.
It's probably going to sound a lot like that. And my point is that these priorities, they're from manufacturers. That's where we get these priorities. The problems are solved by manufacturers and our coalition partners at community colleges and other support organizations as well. But it's become the place where the collective voice of manufacturing can come together and actually get things done. And that's been, why did I take the job? That's it. Like, this is really the critical mass of getting things done, and that's what got me excited. That's really what the Chamber, as a manufacturing organization, brings to business.
And Scott, I'd like to get your perspectives on this because you work at MetalQuest, right? You lead MetalQuest. How has the Chamber of Commerce, helped your business directly, indirectly, macro, micro level? I'll let you take whatever path you want with this one.
Well, interestingly, there was a point when I worked at MetalQuest and before I questioned why do anything with the Chamber. They're not doing anything for me. Why do I do anything for them? And I was obviously very wrong. What I've grown to realize that the Chamber is the engine to get things done, is just the simplest way of putting it. The ability to coordinate and get the right people together, networking, having events, that the power in that is phenomenal. So if you're just content doing your own little thing every day and I think you can be successful that way, which I would question if you could, you probably don't need the Chamber. But if you feel like you want to start to work with other people and learn more things and interact with the state agencies and the legislature, the Chamber is the place to do that. I mean, it allows you to do that. You don't have to put the extra effort in. They have all of the resources in place, all the personnel in place, and they're there at your disposal. So we've been able to do so much in the last, especially since Mike's been on board, but in the last year or so with the Alliance now, things that we've talked about for years in meetings at these different manufacturing groups, we're seeing this starting to evolve now. We're finally getting to the point where this is, I can see that we're headed somewhere and we're going to be successful. Events like today, to have over 200 people at a manufacturing event is huge. There's been manufacturing events in the state. At least in my time that I've been in, I've never been in a manufacturing event in Nebraska that's been this large. So I think that is proof that what the Chamber's doing, what the Alliance is doing is working and going somewhere.
It was really cool to be a part of the event today as someone that, I haven't spent a lot of time in Nebraska before. So really cool being a part of that, seeing the amount of people that came out, the high caliber of people that came out as well. One question I've got is, as I'm thinking about this more, I was going to ask you, hey, what's the biggest challenge you're dealing with right now? But I think we kind of know that's workforce already.
Right.
Is there maybe like a nuance to that, like that you'd share as well? We know workforce is a challenge, but maybe we go a little deeper than that.
All right. In my opinion, I guess the nuance that is the elephant in the room, well, and it's not really an elephant in the room because a lot of people talk about it, but we don't have the people. So workforce is an issue, obviously, and that's because we don't have the people, but we're Nebraska. We're going to get people. We want to recruit people. We're not going to have 50,000 or 100,000 people moving to Nebraska in the next couple of years. It's not going to happen. So how are we going to address the workforce problem when we have this other problem? So that comes into the next part of what we're doing with the Alliance, which is what we had today, is we have one of the groups in the alliance is a tech committee, and we're focused on trying to elevate the tech side of manufacturing, trying smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, however you want to spin it. We're trying to get people more interested in that. So the people that don't know anything about it, we're trying to get them comfortable with it. People that know about it but don't know what to do, we're trying to get them comfortable with moving forward. And the people that have been doing stuff, we're trying to get them to the next level. So it's just this education, because at the end of the day, if we don't automate and adopt more smart manufacturing processes, we are going to start going backwards. We're going to start losing industries. There's a lot of industry in manufacturing industry in the state that is either nationwide or worldwide. Mm-hmm. If we're not productive in Nebraska, they're just going to move the plant. We have to start doing things differently here to stay viable and continue to grow our businesses in a state where we aren't going to see a lot of population growth for a while. I would love to see that happening, but just be realistic, it's not going to be there. And if we avoid that conversation, we're never going to fix the problem.
Yeah, and it's that question is a great question, and it's not native to Nebraska, right? The workforce issue is nationwide. It's something that every one of these podcast listeners is dealing with, and it's multifaceted. I think if we put the lens on manufacturing itself, some of the conversations we've had earlier today, focus on manufacturing isn't sexy, right? You're a senior in high school and you're going to, brag to your friends about going into manufacturing. What does that mean? What does it look like when you say that? And we know that that's not true. We know that you can have an amazing career and a comfortable life working in manufacturing, and you can have a great job that isn't, shoveling junk off the floor or, working in the dirty, dangerous, dungeness place that we sort of think of, unfortunately think of first when we hear the word manufacturing. So part of it is, I must think most of your listeners would agree that it's an image issue. Manufacturing nationwide, maybe globally, has an image issue. And I think that some of the stuff Scott's talking about, one of our rally cries for the team that we're leading within the Manufacturing Alliance, the Industry 4.0 team, is that the cavalry's not coming, right? So we have to automate our way through some of this productivity workforce issue. And we've got some great examples of companies that have done that. It's not in the elimination of positions. It's actually in the elevation of work for the people who work in these facilities. Just amazing stuff. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I just think that it's a couple things. One, it's an image issue. Two, I'm going to quote Warren Buffett. I'm not a Nebraskan, right, originally, if I feel like I'm clicheing myself by quoting Warren Buffett. But he was interviewed once and made the comment that with as productive as the United States has been without engaging the female workforce, imagine how powerful the U.S. economy will be when the female workforce is fully implemented. You were even talking through, Chris, some of the stats today about the low participation rates. I think it was 29% of women in the manufacturing workforce nationwide. These are just, and it was 95% of skilled labor is male.
Yep.
There's just a ton of opportunity for diversity to to fill some of these workforce gaps that we're seeing right now. I think if you think of the manufacturing worker, you're thinking of a white man in a uniform, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I would bet that the surrounding area that you're picturing when you picture the white man in the uniform is probably not representative of what the real world is. The real world, if you go to Scott's business in Hebron, Nebraska, it is clean, efficient, safe. I feel smarter when I walk into his operating room. It's amazing.
Wow.
Nice work, Scott.
Yeah, it's just what's happening in manufacturing now, and what's going to happen in manufacturing in the next 10 years is a quick way to a comfortable life for anyone who's willing to work in that industry. I think as an industry, we just need to fix the image issue.
Yeah, and actually, we've talked a lot about, tangible things you're doing with the Chamber of Commerce, things you've done to get involved in the Chamber of Commerce. Scott, one thing I want to ask is, what are some actions other people can do in this ecosystem to make an impact? Scott, I'll start with you on this one. I could tell you were both thinking about it. It's like I need to direct it somewhere.
Well, I'm thinking out loud then. Honestly, people need to get involved. I guess that's kind of a vague answer, but it just seems like we don't have enough people that are coming to the table and talking about the solutions and working on, or, talking about the problems and figuring out the solutions. And we have a lot of really great things going on, and there's a core group of people that are doing some things to move things forward, but we just don't have enough of them. And one of the differences I think that people really need to start thinking through is that we need to stop being in silos. We have to start working together. If we don't work together, we're never going to solve this problem. And I realize that is a very disruptive thing to say for a lot of people, but we have to start being more open and receptive to working with each other. I just had a gentleman talk to me about that this afternoon, because that's something we've always done. We're very open. We like sharing ideas. That's how I learn. I love giving tours, because every time I give a tour, I learn something, because somebody asks me a question about something I hadn't thought about yet. I'm always going to get something out of that. I don't have to share 100% of what we're doing, but I can share 90% of what we're doing, because I know how hard it was to get there. If you can figure that out, awesome. Now I'm going to come to your facility and I'm going to learn from you. So I think it's really just more that networking and getting involved. That's what it's going to take. Everything else, we could talk about all the little things they could be doing, but at the end of the day, if people are working together more, everything else kind of follows, in my opinion. I do want to touch on one thing, though, that a little more in the weeds that Mike was talking about with females. That is such an untapped resource. I had a gentleman one time ask me, say, why are you trying to attract females? They're 50% of the workforce. They can do the same things or better than everybody else can. Why don't we attract them? MetalQuest has over 20% of our workforce is female, which something I think is awesome, and I've been trying to encourage our team to work on ways that we can even elevate that even more, because it's such an untapped resource for us. So there's little things like that. It's getting rid of the old stereotypes and thinking outside the box and thinking of new ways to do things. If more people did that, I think we'd be in a lot better shape than we are right now.
Awesome advice. Mike, what would you add?
Wow. I can just go 1,000 different directions with this whole thing. Gosh.
Come on, Mike, I gave you plenty of time to think.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You also inspired a lot of thoughts, and I'm halfway through this beer, and so, let's see. I think for your audience, get involved in changing that image, which we talked about. Get involved in your local industry, whether it's a chamber of commerce or a manufacturing association or whatever that coalition is, participate, because that coalition can be the pipeline to all the hurdles that you curse every day, right? There is strength in numbers, and just participating in those coalitions. It's easy for me to say I'm leading one of these coalitions, and so I'm just looking for more help. But even for those who are outside the state of Nebraska, I think that there's just so much power and just so much genuine good that you can do by just participating in your local manufacturing coalition. Even bigger than that, back to that workforce piece, Scott's right. It's engaging the diverse candidates that we don't typically think of. We like to say in the small circles that of manufacturers that I'm running in now, it's that federal immigration reform has got to be a thing that leads to workforce, and it's not political necessarily. It's really it's a thing that has to happen in a bipartisan fashion, and manufacturers are really coming together apolitically, not affiliated with a party or in anything, because it's a thing that we need to kind of drop our fingers and at pointing at each other and really come together and solve. And I think that the critical mass is really starting to happen, where you're going to see some of these big, scary buzzword issues have to get resolved. And I think that, again, participating, coming together, reminding those people who might be mired in some of those testy conversations that we just need to get to a resolution that makes sense, because it matters to to the United States economy to get some of these things worked out. I might have taken your question a little bit big there. I kind of did that on purpose.
It's why we do this over beers. It's excusable.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So anyway, I think that just getting involved is great. I think changing the image is great. One of the things that I'm going to be an open book here, but one of the things, because of the beer, that we're doing in Nebraska is we're really, as manufacturers, engaging with the education community as much as we can. Community colleges, university systems, solving the workforce issue isn't hanging a sign outside that says now hiring. It's so much bigger than that. And so that goes along with what Scott was saying of getting involved, that it's really engaging with every stakeholder that we can to solve these problems. And like running a business, we've also got a plan B. So we're going to go after we're going to swing at the workforce pitch as hard as we can. And at the same time, we're going to swing at the Industry 4.0 automation technology aspect to solve Nebraska's productivity, opportunity. And we're gonna swing at even more pitches than that to continue recruiting people and business to our local economy. But yeah.
Awesome perspectives, awesome advice. And my next question, you've shared a lot of info that I think contributes to the answer for this, but there are people listening to this outside of the state of Nebraska, right? But the reality is a lot of states are facing the same issues right now. Maybe is there a way you'd kind of package this advice to say, hey, what can people learn from what you've done in Nebraska? Mike, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think there's so much strength in this Manufacturing Alliance Coalition that was formed just before my time in the chamber. I've got the privilege to lead that coalition, but it really is join that manufacturing association. It may or may not be linked to your state chamber of commerce, but it can be the voice for manufacturers, not only into your state legislature, but also to Congress, right? In D.C., we can, with those coalitions, have a stronger voice. If you're not participating in that right now, that would be my first step, first piece of advice. So what has Nebraska done? It's created the Manufacturing Alliance Coalition. That coalition probably exists in your state already, and I would just say get involved. If you're a manufacturing leader, you're probably having conversations over beers with other manufacturing leaders right now. You're probably griping about the same stuff that we're griping about, but I tell you what, I observed the legislative session this year in Nebraska, and when our lobby team goes over there and says, this is what the manufacturers are asking for in testimony for a bill, oh gosh, I tell you what, it matters. And so that's why we're really looking to raise the image and raise the voice of we're Nebraska, we're not just an ag state. Be involved in your local area and remind your state senators, your state politicians, your DC politicians, manufacturing is huge, it matters, and this is what we're saying. This is what we need help with. So that's my advice for what we've done.
Yeah, and if you don't have a manufacturing group in your state, you need to form one, because what we've found is that, and this is common sense when you think about it, if everyone is doing their own thing and trying to come at education or legislatures all on your own, you don't have a large voice. You're just another person. You're just another annoyance to them. But if you can come in together, that all changes. Yeah, we have regional groups here in the state as well, and one of our regional groups, we've been working with some of the educational service units, how they have things set up here in the state. And they flat out told us that they appreciated that we were coming to them as one group, because then they didn't have to accommodate 5 or 6 different manufacturers with different tours or presentations. We could just come in at one time, engage the students, and we actually had better quality programs because of that. So I think the key takeaway is you need to come together with other manufacturers, whether that's city, state, regional, something like that. But there's strength in numbers, and the more that you can coordinate together, the more you're going to get done.
Strength in numbers, forming those alliances, coalitions, great advice across the board. We're at the end of our interview, but I promised you, Mike, that we'd save some time. So my last question is, what do you look for in the perfect beer? right? Or what do you look for in your beer when you're tasting?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Back to the Budweiser
Oh, my
days.
gosh. I'll try not to talk too much about this. First of all, I think that I get this question a lot, right? Like, what's your favorite beer? What's the best beer? There's so much image and pressure tied to a person's beer order, and that's just a big shame. So my advice to anyone who's looking to have or not have their next beer, it's to look inwardly and just have whatever it is that you want to have. There's just so much social pressure around what you're going to order as a beer. It carries an image. It says a lot about you, right? So I have to say that. What am I looking for? I think in every decision in my life, including what beer I'm going to get, I look for balance. I think I might have coined this analogy a few years ago, but for a while, I love an IPA. I love a good IPA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm drinking an American light lager right now. But for a while, IPAs became like hot wings. Like it was, how hot can we make the hot wing? No one actually enjoys eating it. They just like bragging about how hot the hot wing was that they ate. And IPAs kind of got that way for a while, but then they peeled back and they just got to be these amazingly well-balanced, fruity, hoppy, citrusy,
Piney.
Depending on the sub-style of IPA that you're in. Man, I love that. So I think to answer your question with one word, it would be I'm looking for a balance. I'm drinking a beer right now that I know extremely well. I've made more of this beer than I'll ever drink in my entire life. I've probably hand dumped more of this beer down the drain than I'll ever drink in my entire life. And so when I taste a beer that I know really well from my prior experience, I look for all sorts of defects. And so sometimes I have to get out of my own head and just like, no. Just enjoy the experience of having a beer with some friends and some good conversation and just relax. So, yeah.
Well, I can say I have enjoyed the experience of having a beverage with both of you today. So thank you for all the perspectives. And with that, cheers. Thanks so much for being on Manufacturing Happy Hour. And thank you all for listening to our conversation.